Hello, I'm Claire Smith and welcome to my channel. So this video is a tag video and I was tagged by Scented Snowdrops, Jon Snow, and this video is all about the fragrances that got away. So the fragrances, you know, the ones that you try but you never buy and then they get discontinued and you just haven't noticed, or the ones that you haven't tried but you've just heard hyped on YouTube after they've been discontinued and you just can't find them anywhere and it's just driving you insane because you just really want to try them but you just can't. And you just always wonder, don't you, about those fragrances, the ones that got away. It's like other things in life, always the ones that got away are the ones that really fascinate you. And I think this video is just kind of a little bit of a parable, isn't it? It's a parable of life. It's saying to you that you need to grab those opportunities, that you need to tell people that you appreciate them and you love them, because you never know when that opportunity will be gone. And it's the same with fragrance. So if you haven't checked out Jon's channel, please do go check him out. I absolutely love talking to Jon. He must be absolutely sick of me by now because I really feel like he is probably one of the best friends that I have met through doing YouTube. And I read his posts on Instagram every day. And he's really influenced a lot of my views on perfume. And is just someone who is very inventive and just funny. He's just a very funny person. So please do go check out Jon. So I'm just going to choose now 10 fragrances that I regret not having tried or not having purchased. And you know, sometimes you might just not have been missing out on much. And then other times you might have missed out on the greatest fragrance ever made. And really, you'll never really know about it, will you? Unless you've tried it. So yeah, it's a bit of a sad one, this video, really, isn't it? So if I talk about a fragrance that you have tried in this video, then please do let me know down below what you think of that fragrance and whether I have actually missed out or whether I shouldn't worry too much about it. And you can even be a bit kind and lie if you want to. So let's get on with this. So the first fragrance I'm going to talk about is one that was actually discontinued sometime last year, I think. And I remember having warning of this one being discontinued and going to smell it and really, really liking it, but I still didn't buy it. So this one is Fiori by Giorgio Armani. Actually, this fragrance seemed to disappear virtually overnight. I remember it being everywhere and then it was nowhere. And I think it caught a lot of people out because they didn't seem to actually believe that it was discontinued because it just seemed to be everywhere. So this one, from memory, bearing in mind that I only tried it once or twice, so this probably isn't a very accurate description of how this fragrance smells, but I just remember it being a very elegant smelling, creamy floral fragrance. A little bit sweet, but not too much, and also having a little touch of rose and blackcurrant in the background, and maybe being a little bit powdery. I just feel like this one was something that would be suitable for a signature fragrance. It was universally likable. It was one of those very unique fragrances that is incredibly likable. It just has that sort of friendly feel to it, versatility. I think that's probably why it was so popular with so many people. The Si Passione Eclat versions just don't interest me in the slightest. I don't really like those fragrances. But Fiori really did attract me and I really am kicking myself that I didn't pick this up. So yeah, if you own Fiori, smile and feel smug because you've got a good one. So that's Fiori by Giorgio Armani. So the second fragrance is one that I definitely feel like I missed out on because I have tried it thanks to Jon, who sent me a sample. So this one is Thierry Mugler's Alien Essence Absolue. So this fragrance I think is pretty well known in the perfume community. It was really hyped when I started my YouTube channel back in 2020 and it was one that I was kind of looking out for, but because I hadn't tried it at the time, I didn't really want to blind buy it in case I didn't enjoy it, because at that time in my life I wasn't really into Alien generally. And yeah, I remember trying it when Jon sent me the sample and thinking, wow, this was really quite daring and quite interesting for a designer fragrance. And I think that's just a real problem, isn't it, with Mugler nowadays? They've gone a bit mainstream now that L'Oreal owns them, and they've just become a little bit boring compared to how they used to be. And I think there's a massive difference with the older fragrances and the newer ones. And I think people who are fans of the older ones are perhaps not fans of the newer ones and vice versa. And, you know, everyone's different. Everyone likes something different. And so I think, you know, that's just a direction they've taken and it's just something that everybody has to live with. But I do think that the Mugler brand has definitely moved in a less artistic direction than they were going at one point. So Alien Essence Absolute is just like a deeper, richer, more vanillic version of Alien with some incense and some myrrh. It's definitely got that same sort of slightly menthol, not really as menthol as Old Alien actually. Like I do have the Old Alien formulation here. This one has a bit of a menthol thing at the beginning. Alien Essence Absolue has a kind of medicinal feel to it throughout really. And it's not as strong as the menthol beginning that fades in this one. But there is sort of something medicinal about it, which I assume is the myrrh and maybe some contribution of the incense. But yeah, it just is a very warm, inviting, very sexy kind of fragrance in a way. And I think the bottle really reflects that. I mean, if you look at the bottle, it looks like a bum basically, doesn't it? It looks like butt cheeks. And I think that's really sort of some kind of nod to what this fragrance is about really. It just looks so rich as well. What we need to do is look at the colour of the fragrance as well. It's so sort of deep and dark. And you just know that it's absolutely packed full of that jasmine, that really sort of hypnotic jasmine that you get in Old Alien. And it's just a stunner. It's a wow kind of fragrance. And I really do feel very sad that I missed out on it. I do hold out still some hope that I will find it at a reasonable price somewhere, but who knows whether I will do. So that's Thierry Mugler's Alien Essence Absolue. So the next fragrance is one that I hadn't heard of actually until I smelt it on somebody else. And then I asked them what they were wearing and she said it was Gucci Envy. So Gucci Envy was created in 1997. And I'm not sure exactly when it was discontinued, but I know it's been discontinued a long time. But this one is a beautiful powdery hyacinth and lily of the valley fragrance. And it's something that I would never have imagined that I would really enjoy before I started YouTube. Those kind of notes really didn't figure in on my radar really, but actually from trying more fragrances, I've realised that I really do like hyacinth in fragrances. In fact, I like purple florals generally really. So this fragrance is quite green and spring-like, and it's also got a sort of slight creaminess in the dry down. It sort of has a bit of a solar feel, a bit of a sun cream kind of feel to it, but really it's not very heavy on that kind of side of it. It's more about the green freshness and that hyacinth. It's just such a beautiful fragrance, and it's something that when she's wearing it, I get lovely wafts of this fragrance, and I just think that she smells so pretty. And I would love to own a bottle, but I know it's been discontinued so long that I'm a little bit scared to buy a vintage bottle because you just don't know how they've been kept, do you? And I'm just scared that I would get one that was already on the turn. So I feel like this is just one that I've loved and lost, but Gucci Envy is definitely one that I feel like I've missed out on. So the next fragrance I think is one that a lot of people loved, and it's Stella by Stella McCartney. If you haven't tried Stella, it's a gorgeous rose fragrance with some peony, and really the rose in this is just quite dark, but I wouldn't say it's gothic. It's definitely not powdery, it's more of a fresh rose, but it's a very realistic rose, but quite sweet, but not too much either. It's just a really nice rose fragrance basically. And this fragrance is one that I very almost got a absolutely bargainous bottle of. I remember when I was prepping for my wedding, I was parked up somewhere and I had a ticket on my car and I knew the time was ticking down. I knew I had to get back to my car and I just paid for something in this shop, and then I looked at the fragrance cabinet and lo and behold, what was there? It was Stella by Stella McCartney, 100ml bottle for £20. And I could not believe my eyes, and I was trying to get somebody to open this cabinet for me so I could go to the till and buy it, but there was just no staff around, and I could tell that I was going to run out of time on my parking ticket, and so I had to just leave. But when I went back the next day, that bottle had gone, and that was the last bottle. And actually that was the day that I found out that Stella was being discontinued, that day that I went back for that bottle. And I never saw a bottle of Stella in the flesh ever again. And I really regret not having picked up that bottle, and I really wish that I just got a parking ticket because I think about that fragrance so often. I really did like it, and peony and rose are really two of my favourite notes in fragrance, or they used to be at that time in my life, and I just think I would have really enjoyed wearing that one. I probably would have even worn that fragrance for my wedding actually. I think it was that special. So yeah, Stella by Stella McCartney is definitely a regret for me. So this next fragrance is one from a fragrance house I don't think many people will have heard of actually. It's a fragrance house called Girard, and Girard are a really old fragrance brand. They started creating fragrances back in the 1920s, and actually I haven't heard that they've released anything in the last 15 years, so I'm assuming they might have closed down. But the fragrance I'm talking about is called New York Nights, so not the Bond No. 9 New York Nights, the Girard New York Nights. So New York Nights was a fragrance that really resembled Armani Code actually, and I think Armani Code is said to have been based on New York Nights. So it's an orange blossom and jasmine fragrance in the main. And it's just really rich, warm, enveloping and deep. And it's just one of those sort of really dressy fragrances that really feel very special. And when I first tried this in the shop, I just instantly loved it. And I thought, right, I'm going to go home, think about it, and wait for this to dry down. And then I'm going to come back and buy it. And I went home, and I remember it was close to Christmas. And my husband said to me, oh, did you see anything nice in town? Did you find anything that you might like for Christmas? And I said, oh, yes, this is fragrance. It's really affordable. I'd really like it. This is what it's called. And he said, yes. I'll look into that and go and get that. So Christmas came and went, and the fragrance didn't appear. And when I asked him, he said that when he went to the shop, the people in the shop said that they'd never had that fragrance and they'd never heard of it. And I felt like that shop was completely gaslighting me, because I'd tried that fragrance in that shop. So how could they not have stocked that fragrance? But actually, when I went back, it wasn't there. And it seems like that was the point at which that fragrance was being discontinued. So yeah, they'd probably just sold out and probably were trying to flog him another one. But yeah, it's sad times, isn't it, when you miss out on a fragrance. I should have just bought it when I saw it, but I didn't. So yeah, Girard New York Nights is another one that I feel like I missed out on. So the next fragrance that I feel like I've missed out on is Miss Dior Cherie. And the reason I feel like I've missed out on this one is because I recently smelt Soaky London's Empress. And spoiler alert, I did not enjoy that fragrance if you haven't seen my review. But that fragrance is said to have been based around Miss Dior Cherie. And I just cannot imagine that Miss Dior Cherie smelled anything like Soaky Empress. I just can't imagine that Dior would put anything out there that smelled like that. So I'm just intrigued to smell Miss Dior Cherie and just suss out what it's all about, basically. So Miss Dior Cherie has really interesting notes of caramel, popcorn and strawberry. And I feel like, you know, that gourmand nature of it just is what made it so popular. So I actually have the 2012 version of Miss Dior, and this is very much more, you know, quite a mainstream smelling, very nice, very elegant, but still quite, you know, well-trodden path of a rose chypre fragrance, but still a very nice chypre fragrance. Whereas, you know, the old Miss Dior Cherie is very different to that. And that's just very typical of Dior, isn't it? That's something that Dior do. They discontinue their fragrances, or they completely reformulate them and then name them the same thing. They just have like this crazy mentality, really, Dior. And actually, they're doing the same thing with Absolutely Blooming now, aren't they? They're discontinuing that one, and they're reformulating Blooming Bouquet. And I recently also tried the really old version of Dior Homme, and I absolutely fell in love with that fragrance. It's just gorgeous. But what have they done? They've turned it into a very generic, woody fragrance that's just not as nice as the old one. I don't get Dior at all. They're just crazy. So yeah, Miss Dior Cherie is definitely one that I feel like I might have missed out on. So the next fragrance is also one from Dior, and it's Midnight Poison. And the reason I loved Midnight Poison, I think, was because I was attracted by who advertised it. So it was actually advertised by Eva Green, and I was totally obsessed with Eva Green from the moment I saw her in The Dreamers in 2003. If you haven't seen that film, it's definitely worth a watch. It is a love letter to French cinema and to that kind of era. It's set in sort of in the 1960s, in the riots of 1968. So yeah, definitely worth a watch, that film, if you haven't seen it. But I think Midnight Poison, I think the beauty of it is its simplicity. It really is just a rose patchouli fragrance, but with a bit of warmth. And that sort of very dark gothic vibe that it has is something that actually a lot of fragrances have tried to repeat, and they've never really quite got it right in the designer market, at least. So I do have this little decant from Gabby, but I have used quite a lot of this fragrance. But I've also had some other sort of dupe fragrances. I've tried out a few dupes. So I was also sent Pearl de la Lique from M, and I'd say this one is just a little bit rosier, actually. There's really not anywhere near as much patchouli in this fragrance, and this is probably very much the friendlier fragrance of the two, of Midnight Poison and this one. And then I also have this Kat Von D Sinner fragrance, and I'd say this one again does have a vibe of Midnight Poison, but obviously this one has kind of different notes. This is more of like a fruitier version. This is a plum version almost of Midnight Poison. And really, you know, they're not that similar, but they do have a feeling that's similar between them in a way. So yeah, Midnight Poison is something that I've kind of got a very small amount of, but ultimately I'm probably never going to own a bottle of, because actually I see a lot of fakes of Midnight Poison on secondhand selling sites. And whilst a lot of them I can tell that they're fakes just from the pictures, I'm sure there are fakes out there that I can't tell from the pictures, so I don't think I'd risk it. But yeah, Midnight Poison is something that I kind of regret not buying a bottle of, because I did really like it and I still really like it. So yeah, Midnight Poison. So another fragrance that I would have loved to have tried is Kenzo Amour. I think it's been discontinued now, but I'm really interested in the older version of this fragrance because it was reformulated and all the bottle colours changed. So they used to be in orange, white and pink bottles depending upon the bottle size, but now they're all in a pink bottle, and I think even that version has now been discontinued. So I think the thing that really interests me about this fragrance is that it's a rice vanilla fragrance. It just sounds delicious, and it also has heliotrope. And heliotrope is something that I never really realised what it smelled like. I didn't know what heliotrope was. And I've only sort of recognised it by trying lots of different fragrances with heliotrope in it. I really, really love, for example, the Reminiscence fragrance with heliotrope in it. I also really like this vanilla fragrance with heliotrope in it. And I also like this fragrance which has heliotrope in it. So I think there's really a trend with heliotrope with me that it's usually a winner. So I really feel like Kenzo Amour would have probably been a winner for me. And I also like the idea of there being incense in this fragrance. I think that just sounds really intriguing and interesting. And actually, Kenzo Amour, I think, is considered to be a dupe of Hypnotic Poison, or, you know, similar to. It may not have been created after Hypnotic Poison, I'm not really sure. But I just from the notes, I just can't imagine that they would smell similar. They don't look similar. And Hypnotic Poison is something that is just incredibly sweet, incredibly almondy. And yeah, it just doesn't strike me as something that is going to smell similar to Kenzo Amour. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe when I try Kenzo Amour, I will be struck by the similarity. So yeah, Kenzo Amour is another one that I would love to have tried. So the next fragrance is one from the Aqua Allegoria range from Guerlain, and it's actually Ginger Piccante. And I was actually tossing up between this one and also Tiazura. I was also really attracted by Tiazura, and that one is also discontinued now. But I think the reason that I was so taken with Ginger Piccante was because I tried it at the same time as Coconut Fizz, and I ended up buying Coconut Fizz and leaving Ginger Piccante. And really, I feel like I should have bought both because I really, really liked both. So Ginger Piccante is quite a hot ginger fragrance. So it's a very fresh ginger, like a fresh cut ginger fragrance. And it also had a little bit of a feel of a ginger tea about it, with a touch of rose, a touch of a fresh rose. And yeah, it was just a very refreshing kind of, very simplistic fragrance in a way. There was also a little touch of citrus maybe as well, but it was just such a refreshing fragrance, and it just made me feel like it was something that I would really have enjoyed smelling in the summer. And also really reminded me of Origin's Ginger Essence, which is a fragrance that I used to go and sniff with my friend, and she would always instantly sneeze, and I found it hilarious that she just could not smell ginger without sneezing. But yeah, it has that effect on some people, doesn't it? But yeah, I think ginger is just a very uplifting, very happy, very zingy note, isn't it? And I don't really have any fresh ginger fragrances in my collection, and I would really like one. So maybe I should get that ginger flanker of Twilly or something. But yeah, I definitely feel like my collection is missing a really fresh, zingy ginger. So the final fragrance that I feel like I've missed out on is actually one from Lolita, Lempicka, and this is her original fragrance, the one from 1997. There have been so many different versions of this fragrance, it's really hard to actually understand which one came when. And I think that's really the reason why I've never tried any of this range, because I just feel so confused by which one is which, and I don't want to buy one that isn't the one I want. So this one comes in that beautiful apple bottle with that really retro design, really looks like something that's very whimsical and something from a fairy tale almost. And I think that's part of the attraction for me. And this one just also has notes that I absolutely love. So it has licorice, it has anise, and it has violet. And those trio of notes are just something that I normally really love in fragrances. And it even has cherry. I mean, that's very this year, isn't it? And also ivy. And I only have one other fragrance with ivy in it. and I absolutely love it. It's actually Oh So Decadent by Marc Jacobs. It just makes me think of walled gardens, and I feel like that kind of whimsical fairy tale thing comes through with Ivy Notes as well. It's a very whimsical note. So people describe Lolita Lempicka original fragrance as something that fairies wear, and other fragrances that have been described as something fairies wear I tend to really enjoy. So things like Insolence by Guerlain, that's also described as a fairy fragrance, and that's what's made me want to try it. But yeah, I've never tried any of the Lolita Lempicka purple apple fragrances at all, whatever they're called, but I would really love to try the original. So that's the final fragrance in this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, then please press the like button, and please also consider subscribing if you haven't done already. And please let me know, which of these fragrances have you tried? Am I actually missing out on any of these, or were they just, not so good? I'd be really interested to know as well which fragrances you feel you've missed out on. Are there any that I should be searching out? So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.